evidence, not just trust or hype.
That's what we're all about here on The Deep Dive. Encouraging people to think critically, engage with the information, and come to their own conclusions instead of just passively absorbing whatever they see online.
And with this Japanese surgeon, it seems like that critical thinking was missing, both on her part and maybe on the part of her followers, who might have actually taken her advice to heart.
Definitely a cautionary tale. It makes you think about why people are so drawn to these alternative therapies, even when there's not much scientific proof. Why do you think that is?
Good question. I think there are a lot of factors involved. For some people, maybe it's a distrust of conventional medicine or wanting a more holistic approach.
We see that a lot with alternative medicine. The idea that traditional medicine just focuses on symptoms instead of the root causes.
And a lot of alternative therapies emphasize lifestyle changes, stress reduction, natural remedies, which can be appealing when conventional medicine seems to jump to medication or surgery.
Right. And you can't forget the power of personal stories. Someone hears their friend say a certain therapy worked wonders, they're going to be more likely to believe that than a scientific study that says otherwise.
It's the power of a good story, right? Personal anecdotes are just more persuasive than a dry research paper, even if the science is more solid.
For sure. And social media makes this even worse, with all those echo chambers. People just see information that confirms their existing beliefs, regardless of whether it's actually true.
It's like we've created these online tribes where everyone agrees on everything, whether it's politics, religion, or even health. And once you're in, it's hard to see anything else.
That's why it's so important to be media literate and to talk to people who have different views. Listen, learn, and challenge your own assumptions.
If we're not careful, we'll get caught up in all the hype and misinformation online. And when it comes to our health, the stakes are just too high to blindly trust whatever we see on social media.
That's where qualified healthcare professionals are so important.
Absolutely. Doctors, nurses, they have years of education and training, and they have to follow ethical codes that put patient safety first.
They should be our main source of information when it comes to our health, even if we're interested in trying alternative stuff. A good doctor will be honest with you about the risks and benefits of any treatment, conventional or alternative.
And if they aren't willing to have that conversation or dismiss your concerns, it might be time to find a new doctor who's a better fit.
It's your health. You have the right to be informed and make the best decisions for yourself.
It's interesting that you bring up finding a doctor who's a good fit, because it goes back to the surgeon and the whole personal beliefs versus professional responsibility thing. If she truly believes these alternative therapies work, should she keep quiet about it if it goes against the science?
Now, that's a fascinating question. Gets to the core of medical ethics. It's one thing for a doctor to have personal beliefs that are different, but promoting those beliefs to patients or the public, especially if they could cause harm, that's a whole other issue.
So even if she's not directly telling patients to try wet cupping, just mentioning it on social media could still be unethical because it might influence their decisions and put them at risk.
Exactly. That's why this is such a big deal in Japan. It's making people think about where the line is between free speech and the responsibility that comes with being a doctor.
This has definitely given me a lot to think about. Navigating health information in this digital age takes a whole new set of skills and a healthy dose of skepticism.
Totally agree. We need to be critical thinkers, be careful about what we believe, and be our own health advocates.
It's not just about being skeptical, though. It's also about being open-minded, curious, exploring different views, and talking to people who see things differently.
That's how we learn and grow.
It feels like we're just bombarded with health information everywhere we look these days. TV commercials, social media, even just chatting with friends and family. It's tough to figure out what's real and what's not.
Yeah, it's true. Information overload, right? And the health and wellness world, well, it's a breeding ground for misinformation and hype.
It's like this whole wellness industrial complex, preying on people's fears and promising these quick fixes.
And they make it sound so appealing, right? Natural healing, ancient wisdom, personalized solutions. Easy to get sucked in and forget that not all alternative therapies are actually good for you.
Exactly. Some things like yoga or meditation, they've actually been shown to help, both mentally and physically. And they're generally safe if you do them responsibly. But then you have stuff like that wet cupping the surgeon was promoting. That can be really risky.
And that's where critical thinking comes in. We have to evaluate information wherever it comes from and ask the right questions.
Like what are some signs that should make us think twice before we believe a health claim?
One big one is a lack of scientific evidence. If someone's claiming miracle cures, but there's no research to back it up, That's a huge red flag.
And even if there are studies, we need to look at the quality, right? Were they published in reputable journals? Were they well designed? Big enough sample sizes?
Right. And be careful with studies funded by companies that are trying to sell you something. They might not be totally objective.
What about testimonials? Those can be so convincing, especially when they come from people you trust.
Testimonials are powerful, but they're not the same as scientific proof. Remember, they're just personal experiences, and those can be affected by a lot of things that have nothing to do with the treatment.
Like the placebo effect, right? People feel better just because they think they're getting a treatment, even if it's not actually doing anything.
Exactly. And people who have good experiences are more likely to talk about it than people who don't. So you're only getting part of the story.
So, if we shouldn't rely on testimonials or personal stories alone, what should we be looking for when we're evaluating health information?
Look for evidence-based information from sources you can trust. Things like scientific studies, government health websites, professional medical organizations.
And be wary of anyone trying to sell you something, right? Their main goal might be profit, not your health.
It's also important to remember that everyone's different. What works for one person might not work for another.
True. Our bodies are complex, and so many things affect our health. Our genes, our lifestyle, our environment.
So even if a therapy has worked in some studies, it's not a guarantee it'll work for you.
So what's the takeaway here? What advice would you give to our listeners who are trying to figure all this out?
Be critical, be curious, and be your own advocate. Don't be afraid to ask questions, do your own research, and get different perspectives.
And if you're thinking about trying an alternative therapy, talk to your doctor first. They can help you weigh the risks and benefits and make a smart choice.
Definitely. Your health is precious. Don't take chances by blindly following trends or trusting information that hasn't been proven.
This deep dive has really been eye-opening. It's made me realize how important it is to be a smart consumer of health information, especially online where things can go viral so quickly.
I agree. We need to be cautious, critical, and informed.
Well said. And on that note, we'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this case? How do you protect yourself from misinformation? Join the conversation on our social media channels, and let's keep this conversation going.
We're all in this together.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay healthy.